They're trying to feel a sense of abundance, even though that is a false sense of abundance, to fill the sense of scarcity that they have. Hi everyone, this is Qurashi. I used to be a psychiatric resident in an addiction hospital, and now I'm on YouTube. My producer basically plays videos, and we have a heavy focus on strange addiction, or my strange addiction, but it could be anything. So I'm not really sure what it is, but basically I'm just reacting to every video he's showing me. So let's see what he's displayed for me this time. Okay. That's, Inflatable.
My name is Mark, I'm 20 years old, and I'm in a relationship with 15 inflatable animals. My inflatables are the funnest creatures I have to hang out with in my life. I'll eat with them. What, you want my food? You get your own. Watch TV together. Okay, fine, I'll show you like. If I bathe my inflatables, let's get sure. Snap. If I do take my inflatables out swimming.
Mark's addiction to inflatables began 6 years ago when he purchased a whale for his pool. Since then, the 20-year-old college student has added 14 animals to his inflatable family and even prefers them over people.
The thing about inflatable pool toys I love is that they're soft, they're cuddly. The bigger they are, the better they are. Kind of means there's more to love.
I'm trying to pause for a second because I completely I feel for him, and I understand where he's coming from. And I think I have a few different directions to take here. So let me just hone it in. Okay. So the first thing I would touch upon is the idea of having animals as friends, or having toys as friends in that case, inflatable animals. It reflects his, I would imagine, his love for animals, but at the same time, the idea of using inflatable animals gives him more control over it, because he can kind of create, there's control over the shape and the size. And I'm going to focus on the word control here, because whenever we feel in control, we feel safe. And there's so many different ways that people try to operate in a way that gives them a sense of control. There's a negative way of doing it that creates a false sense of control, and there's a positive way of doing it. The negative way of doing it is basically dominating someone else, trying to dominate someone else, belittle someone else, bully someone else, devalue someone else, criticize other people. And that's a whole topic in itself. But that gives a false sense of control, but nevertheless it gives a sense of control to a degree that makes us feel safe. The other aspect of control is, what are the different ways of establishing control in order for you to feel safe? One way is to control the parameters and the circumstances around you. The other is to control, for example, is to predict. If you have the ability to predict, then you can easily feel a sense of control that makes you feel safe. That's why people that are, anxious in a certain moment of the day, they just start to organize their office. And by organizing the office, they suddenly feel better. They organize the desk and they feel so much better, because they are demonstrating an activity that gives them a sense of control, which makes them feel safe. That's why it works. It's an effective strategy to create a sense of safety. It doesn't alleviate the problem, because it still needs to be addressed. So in this sense, what he's doing is he's creating a reality that gives him a sense of control. He is controlling the environment and the people that he's surrounding himself with. And he's surrounding himself with inflatable animals. He's surrounding himself with animals that he can control in terms of the size, maybe slightly the shape, the position in front of him, the activities that they will do with him. But what he's also doing is he's completely eliminating any potential threat, because he's in absolute control of the people, or what he's labeling as people, as friends. Because he said, I'm in a relationship with my inflatable animals. So he creates that. And what that does is it gives him a complete sense of control. They can never attack him. They can never abuse him. They can never bully him. They can never criticize him. They can never devalue him in any way or form. They will never become a threat. If you're not hurting anyone, if you're not hurting yourself, then by all means do whatever is necessary. But if this affects his social life, intimately, relationships with the opposite sex if he wants to, but the idea is if he wants to have a girlfriend, or if he does have a girlfriend, I'd be interested to know how that is affecting her, because then you have the idea, and this is the thing, when someone has a habit, a hobby, a passion that is out of the norm that people consider as norm, then that may create conflict in any relationship, because she may be feeling ashamed of telling her friends and her family about what he does. So so he may be kept aside. He may not be revealed. And that's going to make him feel ashamed of what he does, even though he loves it. And then she would be creating conflict in his life. And he will resent her for that. I mean, one question I would ask is, does he deflate them after he uses them to create that scenario where he eats with them? Or are they constantly inflated throughout? Does he maintain it? What is he? I mean, it would be interesting to dive into how much time he's actually spending taking care of them, going to look for more, buying more, and maintaining them in order for them to look as great as, or as acceptable as possible to him. Because that takes a lot of time away from a loved one. It takes a lot of time away from work or from studying if he's a student.
Mark first turned to inflatables for love and affection when he was 14 years old.
My mother really wasn't there for me
Here we go.
when I was a child. First time I hugged my inflatable whale, I actually started feeling all that love and compassion that I never got from my mother.
Now he's so dependent on his inflatables, he can't be separated from them for more than a day.
When I'm at school, when I start missing them, and it's almost like if I'm going a little bit crazy. Hey, Charlie. Once I go home, basically give him a hug, give him a kiss.
So, I mean, it was like, I don't know, 20 seconds remaining, but that explains it. There's always you have to understand, trauma is not the trauma that everybody assumes it is. It's not just like this intense moment. Rejection is a trauma. Abuse is a trauma. And every time you're rejected, you're traumatized. And every time you're abused, you're traumatized. And every time you remember an abusive moment, or a moment where you were rejected, again, you're recreating a trauma. But the mind can't tell the difference between something you vividly imagine and something you actually experience. Which means whenever you remember a trauma, you are having a new one. And that's very important. So in his situation right now, he described the situation where his mom didn't give him. He was constantly neglected. And I think it was a stretched out kind of trauma of neglect, of rejection. Now, I don't know the details about it, but what he just described is enough. Because here's the thing, when you're neglected, especially at a child, at his age, I mean, at a young age, the most critical period of time is from the moment you're born until you're 7 years old. The way you perceive the world is formulated during that period of time. And the thing is, it's hard to get rid, but not impossible, to get rid of traumatic experiences that happen during that period of time, because it shapes your world. Now, when it comes to parents, mothers and fathers, if a person feels neglected by another human being, it's different than if they feel neglected by the people that brought him into this world, people that he trusts more than anyone. The sense of betrayal a person can feel from another human being is different than a sense of betrayal from a parent, a violation from a parent, the person that they expected that they can trust with everything and lean on and depend on. A betrayal from a parent shatters the self-image of a person, especially at that age. And the way they look at the world will be distorted. You can always recover from that. There are ways of making that happen. But it shatters your world when you're betrayed or violated by the person you unconditionally trusted. Because when you were in the most helpless position, as a baby, not knowing what to do, how to feed yourself, they took care of you. And to feel a sense of betrayal from someone like that is unbearable. Now, what he was basically mentioning is the fact that she neglected him. He didn't feel her love. We need oxytocin, and we get that through that pressure, through the hugs, through the closeness, through that intimacy. The problem is he didn't get that from the person he thought he was going to get it from, or he didn't get enough of it. So he developed a sense of scarcity. He started asking himself as a child, what's wrong with me? Because I see other mothers, when I see my friends, hugging my friends. Why isn't my mom hugging me? And automatically they may think, oh, what's wrong with me? Something's wrong with me. And they start looking for flaws. And they go down that rabbit hole of finding a justification. Maybe it's a punishment. Maybe I'm being punished for something I did. What did I do wrong? And they start to look for all the things they've done wrong. And guess what? Usually, when you start to look for all the things that you've done wrong, you start doing more wrong things. What he did was he created what he didn't have. And when we get addicted to something, it's either to avoid something or to provide something for ourselves that we no longer have or we never had but we always wanted. And in his case, he created the reality he wanted. It's great to create the reality you want as long as it doesn't have downsides. And he was also mentioning how much time he was spending and how much he misses the toys, misses these inflatable animals when he leaves, and how much time he spends saying goodbye, I would imagine, how much time he spends spending time with them when he comes back. So that takes a lot of time that he could use in other aspects of his life that are vital, that are important.
Spend like family time together.
Okay, we can talk more about you if we want.
Let's say every one of my inflatables has a different personality. A little down today, don't you?
One more thing is loneliness. He felt lonely. He felt abandoned. He felt alone because of his mom. So he created a reality in which he got the attention he wanted, in which he was never alone. They're with him in every single shot. I mean, everything is about them. I know there are probably things that he did. I doubt, actually. I believe that to compensate for the lack of support, for the lack of attention, for the lack of love, he would compensate by creating the reality of having that attention, having that love 24/7. The only time he leaves them is when he leaves the house. Other than that, whatever he does in the house, he has them around to create that sense of comfort and support.
Some like different types of music, some don't. Some like to just be lazy and sleep all day. I would say they get along together pretty well.
The last part was interesting because what he did is he was basically playing his guitar in front of one of them. So it's not just, it's activities that you would do on your own, but you just have that visual representation of support and love. But there's also activities that may involve other people. And I would have that question. If I were to have a session with him, I would have that question, is understanding the different categories of the way he interacts with the toys, with these inflatable animals. Does he talk to them? I think he may have alluded to that, but does he talk to them? Does he imagine hearing a response he wants? How far does the reality go? How deep does the reality go in the way he's creating it whenever he's around them? Does he just want their visual the visual presence, or does he also want to imagine an auditory response? Does he imagine them talking to him? Or does he imagine them responding to what he says, or commenting on what he did, and celebrating him and complimenting him and motivating him? How far does this go? Because one of the main issues in that is the time invested that will distract him from things that will disrupt his life, but at the same time, being dependent on their presence for him to feel safe, which makes it hard for him to strengthen himself psychologically to deal with aspects of the world that are necessary to be dealt with without having any support when he leaves the house. And there are so many examples for that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If there's any video that you'd like me to comment on or do a react video to or breakdown, please comment in the section below, and please share it in the section below. And please make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And I look forward to connecting with you soon on a future video. And I wish you an amazing morning, evening, afternoon, night, wherever you are. Bye for now.